Does that white border around your fussy cut ephemera really irritate you? This is Denise with Paper Crafty, and today we're going to look at how we can get rid of that white border around our fussy cut ephemera using our electronic die cutting machines. Digital kits that you purchase on the internet can come in a variety of file formats. Specifically today, I'm going to be working on my Silhouette Studio software and cutting with my Cameo 3, which is a little bit of an older model. But this basic technique can be used with just about any electronic die cutting machine. So let's get started. In the last video of this series, I showed you how we can import JPEG files into the software for your electronic die cutting machine, trace it, and use that file to mass make ephemera. I'm not going to repeat what we did in that video, but this video will build upon that tutorial. So if you haven't seen it yet, please check out the link in the description box below, and I'll also leave a link in the video up here in the upper right hand corner. You can press that if you haven't seen it yet. All right, I want to open my original ephemera page. I'm going to open recent ones, and let's see, this is the film strips. This is my cut file, so I want to open that up. Okay, so I've got this. The next thing I want to do is go to my layer lock, and I'm going to unlock this just for the moment. I want to make sure I don't touch anything on here accidentally while it's unlocked. So I'm going to try to use this panel up here. This is under Edit, Select All, and that will select each piece of ephemera individually. And we're going to look at the page setup. Okay, so let's see. When we're in this area where it has registration marks, we can do something which is called print bleed. And I have my default set at 0.05, and that seems to work with quite a few things. Somewhere between 0.02 and 0.05 seem to work good for ephemera. When you print this out, what this will do is it will give you kind of a blurred edge around the edge of each of these pieces, so that you don't get any white showing on any of your ephemera. So for example, on this piece of ephemera, if it just bothers you that there's the slightest bit of white along the edge here, you can try this and see if you get a better result. The reason we can do the print bleed is because after we traced it and we cut the edge and we separated it from the background, so you can see this doesn't have a solid background anymore. Each of these pieces is separate, a separate piece. It's not like all one piece anymore. So we can add this print bleed, and you won't see how that turns out until we go to try to print this, and you'll see what that looks like in this when this pops up. Okay, so you see how this kind of has like a blurry edge like that. I don't feel like this buys me all that much, honestly, having these kinds of blurry edges. So I'm not super a huge fan of doing that this way. Okay, so I got rid of print bleed for now, and we'll just collapse that for the moment. And then I can change the line color here. Right now, the line color that goes around it is just transparent. That's where the cut is. But I can change that to any color that I want. And I can make it black, but that seems a little bit harsh. I'm thinking just like maybe a brown color would be nice. Okay, and you can see that now it has a brown color around it. However, I would like to thicken up that line color a little bit. So I'm going to go under the line style panel, And you can see the default is 0. So I'm just going to make this line a little bit thicker. Let's see what I come up with here. Okay, so now you can see that that line is a little thicker. Okay, I don't necessarily want it quite that thick. It takes a minute to kind of catch up with what you're doing. So let's see, I think 1.75 is good. Let's try that. I'm going to close that. And then, again, I'm going to go back and I'm going to lock the panel, the layer, just so I don't accidentally move anything. And then I'm going to go back to my page setup. And now I'm going to do the print bleed. And that should take the brown line and extend that instead of, you know, the whatever, you know, whatever pixels it's picking up on each individual ephemera. Okay, so now if I go to try to print this, again, this doesn't show up until you try to print it, what the bleed, print bleed looks like. All right, so here's what the brown bleed radius looks like. And you can see that it's gonna cut close to the ephemera, but if it doesn't cut absolutely perfectly, instead of a white border, you'll get a little bit of brown around the border instead. And you know, that could totally work for this, but some of the pieces like this black film strip might look a little weird with a brown border. So I don't love it for this particular page of ephemera, and I'm going to show you a different solution for this one in a bit, but right now I'm going to show you an application where this technique works great. So here we go. Okay, now I can do the same thing with the film strips. I'm going to go ahead and, again, I have to unlock the layer before I am allowed to do any more editing to this. So then I just select all. I go to the panel with line style, which is also right here. So this is also line style along the right edge here. In this one, obviously, I'm going to use black because this is a black, primarily black along the edges. And then, let's see, what did I do the other one as? 1.75, something like that. I'm going to go back and I'm going to lock it because I don't want to mess anything up. And then I'm going to go back to the page setup, go to where the registration marks are, do a print bleed of 0.050. Again, I won't know what that looks like until I go to print it. I choose print. Now, these are pretty close together in here, so I might have to change the bleed radius a little bit. We'll see once I hit print here. It'll show us what this is going to look like. Okay, that looks pretty good. They run together, but it doesn't look like it is covering up any of the white there. So I'm going to go ahead and just try to print that and see how that turns out. Okay, so here is the same thing with the bleed. Let's see, you can see this black part's coming off, and it's just, it cuts in exactly the same spot. There's no difference built where it cuts. It just gives a little bit of a bleed so that, you know, if it doesn't cut exactly perfectly, then, you know, that's not visible. So for example, here you can see this. All right, so this is the one I did without the bleed, and this is the one I did with the bleed. And you know, it's a very modest difference on this one. You can see this one has a little bit more white on the edge over here, and then that on this side that doesn't have any. So, you know, it's not a huge difference on this particular one, but some designs might have more of a difference than others. Also, you can see it on the bottom here. So on the very bottom, there's some white on the right-hand side, on the white, on the, yeah, the one on the right. So, and the one on the left doesn't have any. So now I'm going back to that original ephemera page, and you can see that each ephemera still has a brown line around it, and I want to edit that so that the line matches each piece of ephemera individually. I have to unlock this so that I can edit it. I'm going to zoom in so that I can better match the color to each ephemera, and I'm going to open the line style panel so that we can edit those lines. Okay, this one I'm just going to make black, but I'll go ahead and match the black that we've got there. There we go, and I'm going to leave it what it was because that'll be fine. All right, this one I'm going to change, again, I'm going to change the line to clear so that I don't accidentally get that. And I'm going to use the dropper tool. Okay. And I do like that, let's see, for some reason there's different colors. Let's see, I'm gonna go with that one, it's a little darker. And I actually like this one a little bit thicker. So I think I'm gonna go up to maybe even 175 on this one, because it didn't have much of a border to begin with. All right, so I'm on this one. I don't want this one to be a very thick line, and I want it to be like, yeah, that looks pretty good. Could make it a little darker. Could make it more of the darker parchment. Yeah, that might look a little bit better. Okay, so this one's a little bit tricky because this has this kind of edge thing here. So I think for these, again, I'm going to, I've got to get it to stick to that. How come it's not going over there? Yeah, there it goes. All right, I'm just gonna make the circle transparent so I can get the correct color, and I'm just going to use this kind of gray, and that is going to be a much smaller line, maybe 0.5. That one's 0.75. All right, make it 0.75. All right, I'll do the same thing on this one. And I'm going to use this last color that I used in there. It's the same color as the other two. So I think you get the idea. I am not going to show you the whole process for all of the pieces of ephemera, but I just basically matched the line color to whatever border was around each piece of ephemera. And that way, when we go to the print bleed, it will take those pixels from the line that already match the border for each individual piece of ephemera and kind of use that to kind of spread out so that, you know, if the cut isn't exactly perfect, it will not cut with a white border, it'll cut with whatever that border is. So, okay, I'm going back and I'm locking this so that after I print this, I don't accidentally move any individual piece of ephemera because then it won't cut properly when I send this to the scan and print on my Cameo. I'm going to go ahead and make sure it has a bleed radius. And the bleed radius I'm using, I think, is a little smaller. I think it's 0.025 in this instance. I didn't want it quite so big. And I did have to scale down the ephemera slightly. Without the bleed radius, the registration marks worked perfectly, but once I added the bleed radius, it kind of messed those up a little bit. So I had to kind of scale the whole thing down a little bit, but no big deal. It wasn't a huge difference. And then I'm just going to print this and show you what it looks like. Okay, so here is the printable, the print and cut when I've changed the line color for each piece of ephemera, and you can see this looks really, really good. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and cut it so you can see what that looks like cut. Okay, so this is what it looks like once it's gone through, and you can see each has its own border of its own color, and that turns out pretty cool. You get really no white border that way. You can see how this has all the different color borders on there. Might show better on this. You can see how you get that border, so it cuts inside of that bleed area, just so you don't get any white. And this looks really cool. Here's one that, you know, I didn't use any border on. I had to make the size slightly smaller because, you know, I was adding the border. So just slightly smaller so that it would fit in the cut and print area. You can see this one has a little teeny bit of the white along there, mainly along that side. And this doesn't have any white border anywhere. So looks really cool. I mean, that works really, really well, especially on the black, because you can see, you know, the white shows up pretty dramatically, so it's nice not to have that. You know, I added the black around there. I really like the way that one looks too. Okay, so now I'd like to switch gears. So far we've been focusing on using the bleed feature with JPEG and PDF files. And now I'd like to show you how the bleed function can be used with SVG files and cut files like Studio 3 files for your Silhouette machine when using the print and cut feature. I'll put a link for the video where I showed how to print and cut these hole reinforcers is in the description box below, as well as up in the right hand corner of this video. But you can see this is what they look like with no offset, and they look pretty darn good. You know, the print and cut feature does a really nice job. There's a couple little areas where you can see some of the edges have a little bit of white. So, you know, that if that bothers you, or you just want, you know, you're having some trouble, this offset function could really help. So I want to point out that this digital kit comes with print and cut files that are already made for you. And in this case, we're working with the pink one, so there's no need to add a colored line or line of any sort. You just need to add the bleed to it. And the default is back at 0, but I've been liking the 0.050 as a bleed setting. Okay, and I'll show you what this looks like. It doesn't show up on here, unfortunately, what the bleed looks like until you go to print it. So I'm going to go to print it. Okay, so this is what it looks like, you know, and again, you would hit print and do the best, that's my default, and then hit print again. All right, I've already printed this, so I'm not going to print it again, but I'm just going to show you what this looks like if you went all the way to 0 with this print bleed, all the way to the far right with this print bleed, and then went back up here and hit print. You're going to get this preview, and basically you have an entire page of pink. And that's one way to make sure that you don't have any white, but it also wastes a lot of ink. So that's why I'm going back with the 0.0050 seems to work really well. And you can play with this in your own settings and see what works best for you. But I really like the 050. Okay, and then you do the print, and that's what you get. You hit print again, and this will go to your printer. Okay, so this is what the file looks like when printed off with a 0.050 offset. And you can see, they don't really look like hole protectors, but they'll still cut inside of these lines, and they'll look like hole protectors when we're done after it's cut. So let's see, I am just putting this on my mat. I'm going to go ahead and load this in my machine. Okay, so I just loaded that onto my machine. Okay, so I'm back here, and you can see it's going to cut out just like normal. And I'm hitting send over here. I'm going to close the top, because I have heard that sometimes the light will interfere with the registration marks. Okay, so let's see, take this off, and looks a little odd at first until you peel that up. And you can see this way it just doesn't have any white at all around it. You just don't have any white border at all. So if white borders really bother you on your fussy cut ephemera, try this bleed function on your electronic die cutting machine. I demonstrated this on my Silhouette Cameo, but this type of function should be pretty universal for most electronic die cutting machines. So become familiar with your software and experiment a little bit with this bleed function or offset function. It might be called something different in your software. Again, I want to thank you so much for joining me today. It has been a pleasure bringing this information to you. I hope you find this useful. If you do, please give me a thumbs up, leave me a comment, and if you're interested in this kind of content, please consider subscribing to my channel. I'm trying to get to 5,000 subscribers by the end of 2023, so the end of December, and with your help I can make it. Thank you so much for your support. Again, this is Denise with Paper Crafty, and craft on.